Howdy and welcome to episode 19 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen and today is Thursday, January 26th, 2017. And Sam is joining me on this podcast episode, so you might hear his purring. He's a very loud purrer. So here's Sammy. Here's Sam. Okay, so January 26th, tomorrow, January 27th, my niece turns 16. I really just can't believe it because it really feels like it wasn't that long ago that she was born. And I was actually there in the delivery room when she was born. So yeah, 16. Thinking about that, little funny story. My husband doesn't think it's super funny, but it kind of is. So 16 years ago, my husband and I had been married for less than a year, and we were living in Dallas at the time, and so was my sister. And we decided one weekend to go down to Houston to visit my husband's family, and it was very close to my sister's due date. And as we were driving out of town, so we left after work on a Friday afternoon. Dallas traffic was terrible, and it took us a long time to get, basically on the other side of Dallas. After we got to that other side of Dallas, I just started to have this feeling that I really shouldn't go out of town that weekend, that I should actually stay home. But we had spent so long trying to get to that side of Dallas that we didn't really want to turn around and drive back home and drop me off and then have my husband basically turn around and drive back through Dallas traffic. Because we were visiting family, but we were also, my husband was going because it was the Houston car show. He's a big car person, so he was looking forward to that. Anyway, so something told me maybe I shouldn't go to Houston, but we went ahead and drove all the way down to Houston. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Texas area, on a normal day, it would take about 4 hours to drive between Dallas and Houston. With the traffic, it took us almost an hour just to get out of actually probably over an hour to get out of Dallas. So that definitely added a lot of time to it. So it was pretty late by the time we got, late by our standards, so like 9-10 p.m. by the time we got to Houston. And we pretty much said hello to the family. They were tired too, and we all went to bed. Well, I got woken up pretty early the next morning with a phone call. I think it was actually my mom who called, saying that my sister was in labor. And I really, really wanted to be there. It was very important to me. This was my sister's first kid, way before Luke was born. So, I didn't have any kids of my own. So, really wanted to be there for the birth of my niece. Since we came down in just one car, that meant that Jarrett had to come back to Dallas with me. So he missed his auto show. We, basically didn't get to see family much at all. We turned around and drove all the way back to Dallas. But I made it in time, and I was able to be there for my niece's birth. So my husband still occasionally says, "Oh, I missed the car show that one year," just in a teasing way. Yeah, so can't believe that was 16 years ago. Kind of crazy. So anyway, I guess happy birthday to Katie. Speaking of people getting older, realize that, I know this, but yesterday the big realization that Luke is going to be in kindergarten next school year really hit me, because I saw that our school district calendar was just released yesterday. So with the start and end dates for the school year plus the holidays throughout the year. And I realized, oh my gosh, I actually need to pay attention to this school calendar because this is going to be Luke's first school year. So now I know when his first day of kindergarten is going to be. So that's pretty exciting. So we can kind of plan for that now. And lots of stuff to look forward to then. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with today's podcast episode and talk about my shirt. So the shirt I'm wearing today, you can see most of it. I will show you the rest of it. So this basically is an outline, so kind of in space, an outline of the ship Serenity from Firefly. So the TV show is Firefly, and then the movie was called Serenity. And if you're familiar with the show at all, you don't have to get any details to kind of automatically recognize that that's what this ship is, that this outline on the shirt is the Serenity. And it got me kind of thinking about the importance of the ship itself to the show. And I think that this is not just true for this particular show. I think that there it seems to happen in science fiction a fair amount, that the ship itself is really important to the show, and also very recognizable. There are other science fiction shows where you would see the outline of that ship in space, so it could be the same shirt, just a different outline, and again, you would automatically recognize what that was if you are familiar with that particular universe. Anyway, but on Firefly, I think kind of the most important part of the show, and one of the reasons I really like the show, is because it was a character-driven show. Something that, yes, all these events are happening, but it's really how the characters are responding to those events and the interactions among one another that was the driving force behind the show. And both for books and for shows and for movies, character-driven is kind of what I go for. So I'm more fantasy than science fiction. So I don't really like the hard sci-fi that gets really technical. I really like science fiction if it is more based on the characters than on the, the science part, though I don't want to say that I don't like science. Just for me, the character part is more important. So anyway, with Firefly, it is very much a character-driven show, and I think that Serenity, the ship, is one of the characters. The way that the crew interacts with the ship, the relationship that they have with the ship, not just Mal, the captain, definitely Kaylee, the mechanic, Wash, the pilot. I mean, they trust this ship with their lives, and if the ship fails, then they might themselves lose their lives. There's one episode in particular called Out of Gas that basically, if they're not able to fix a particular part of the ship, they're dead in the water, and they themselves will be dead. And Mal is not willing to basically give up on his ship. He does what has to be done in order to save her. And that just seems to be just a really important part of the show. So I really liked this shirt, the idea that, again, instantly recognizable just from an outline, but also thinking about just how important the ship is to the show. And that's a little bit that I wanted to say about today's shirt. Today's shawl is one that you have seen on the podcast before, but I wanted to talk about it kind of in this spot for the shawl because, first of all, I kind of like last week, hey, it matches with the hair, which, by the way, did you notice the hair color is faded quite a bit from 2 weeks ago. So I will definitely need to keep applying going back and getting the toner, basically the color, put back on periodically, because it is definitely not quite as purple as it was. Anyway, so back to the shawl. So the reason I picked this one to talk about today is that this week, on Tuesday, I went to my knitting guild. And I this year I joined the Arlington, I think it's the Arlington Hand Knitters Guild, is the official name. It actually just went through a name change. So the Arlington Knitting Guild. And one of the things that we do at the guild meetings is a little bit of show and tell, kind of showing people something that we've been working on or something that we recently finished. And the idea was for this one, since it was our first meeting of this year, because we meet once a month, to pick your favorite project from last year, from 2016, and bring that in for show and tell. So I was looking through my Ravelry page and looking to see, okay, which project do I think is my favorite? And there were quite a few things that could have been chosen. I actually feel like I did a lot of really fun projects in 2016 that I'm really proud of. So it was kind of a hard choice. But I finally decided to pick this shawl. And like I said, you have seen this on the podcast before. So this is a shawl that I designed. So it's Polyxena, so Polyxena. And this is a shawl that I designed in collaboration with an indie dyer. So Sam decides he wants to grab the shawl. So an indie dyer, actually what he's interested in is the tag. Since this is one of my patterns, I put a tag on it because now it's a display piece for my booth. Anyway, so the indie dyer, art by Anna, who is in Canada. She wanted to have a designer design something using her gradient, and she does gradients in different yarn weights, so different yardages. And so she had a 150 gram cake, which is 500 and something yards. And so I thought, well, that would make a really nice shawl. So I would love to work with you and to design a shawl that features your gradient. And to really kind of make the gradient the star, I wanted to pick something that the stitch pattern was pretty easy. And I did a half pie shawl. And up until this point, the shawls that I designed have all been either the triangular shawl or a crescent shawl. So I had not designed a half pie, even though I knew there's actually a mathematical formula for creating this shawl, a certain number of stitches to start with, and then knitting a certain number of rows, and then increasing very quickly, and then knitting another certain number of rows, and again increasing really quickly. It's something that Elizabeth Zimmerman, I don't know if she came up with, but that she usually is the one credited for the whole pie and half pie math construction. Anyway, so I wanted to do something that would really feature the gradient. And when I was talking to Anna to get the sample gradient cake to knit my shawl, she asked me what my favorite colors were, and I said, blues and purples and even pinks. And so she did this gradient specifically for the sample based upon what I said I liked. And I really like that it starts off with the light pink, moves to the darker pink, goes to purple, and then you get the blue there at the end. I mean, I think it would be really pretty even if it kind of stuck, so I'm gonna try to hide the blue if I can. I think it would be really neat if it just went through the pinks and the purples, but adding that blue at the end just really, really gives it that little bit of something extra. So I was thrilled when I saw the cake that she sent me. Very happy to design this. And then we did the knit along that went along with it. And that was a lot of fun because I think everyone in the knit along used Anna's yarn. And so getting to see the different colors that she had come up with the gradients and how those worked up into this shawl was a lot of fun. And if you go to Ravelry and look at all the project pages for this shawl, just so many different color combinations, and it's really really great to see that. So I guess because it was part of a collaboration and a knit along and a community, and because that idea of community is something that I feel is some of the most important parts of knitting, that's why I decided this was my favorite project of 2016, because it brought together kind of all those different parts of what I love so much about knitting. So as usual, I have several projects on the needles. I will talk about 2 of them in this segment. And then I have more things that are on the needles that relate to things I'm designing or dyeing, so I will talk about those things in those sections to kind of spread out what I'm knitting. So the first thing that I'm knitting is actually related to the podcast. So the first quarter of 2017, the knit along theme is any shawl that has been in your queue or your favorites for more than a year. Or if you don't have something that meets that requirement, any shawl that was published at least a year ago. Basically kind of getting some love for some things that have maybe been sitting around for a while. Sometimes, you get the shiny new object syndrome, and you forget about things that you fell in love with a year or more ago. So I think that's a great theme to bring back some of those projects that got kind of pushed aside. So I'm not very far into my project for this knit along. This is the Elizabeth shawl by Dee O'Keefe, and I think last time I had maybe that much, so I have knit a little bit more on it since the previous episode. But this is a project that as of right now is not getting a lot of focus, and so that's why I haven't really made a huge ton of progress on it. I think that this is going to be one that I'm pushing toward the end of the quarter, and we'll hopefully get it done in this quarter. But usually I finish my knit along quarter projects kind of toward the beginning of the quarter. This one will probably be toward the end. I am enjoying the pattern. I really like, even though I'm not far along on it, I really like that each kind of section, each chart is different. And so it's not going to be kind of the same thing over and over and over again. So something to look forward to as I'm working on that. And that's something that had been in my queue. I don't remember exactly when, but it's definitely been in there for a while. And one of the reasons why I didn't work on it right away is because it uses lace weight yarn, although you can use fingering weight. And I don't knit with lace weight very often. And I'm kind of reminded why in doing this. It just feels I don't mind thin yarn, but it just feels almost a little too thin and a little airy. If you see that, that's even without blocking. So it seems a little airy. I like my knitting, my stitches to be more, defined and not tight, but definitely not super spread out. And with lace, I think that it kind of goes against some of those preferences. Not saying that I don't like this. I think that once it's finished, I will really like the shawl. And it'll probably be very lightweight, which will be nice. But it definitely is something that is taking some adjustment to get used to. So the other main project that I'm working on is showed you last time, the Heroes of Yarnia mystery knit along. So again, the idea that you have, that's a Dungeons and Dragons type of knitting, where you have your character that you devise, and which chart you knit next is based upon the roll of the dice, quite literally. And then could be based on attributes or other types of things with your character. So the 4th clue was released this past weekend, which means the 5th clue is going to be released like tomorrow evening or Saturday morning. I'm still back in clue 2, so I am I'm a little behind in this progress, but that's okay. I don't really want to rush through it. I am enjoying it. And so here is my current progress. I can't remember I know I had at least gotten through that point on the previous podcast episode because I had the dragons. So I think that's what I've knit in the past 2 weeks. And you can see there's a bit of a difference in my tension. So even on the dragons, they're kind of bunched up a little bit. And then up here, as I'm kind of readjusting to stranded knitting, my tension is getting looser and it doesn't feel as tight and drawn in. And so I think this project is getting me, it's been a while since I've done stranded knitting. So it's getting me back into being interested in that. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at keeping the tension appropriately, not too tight. So that has been fun. And I have looked ahead at Clue 3 and to see some of the charts. I have not even looked at Clue 4 because at this point I kind of want to keep some of that mystery going. And I have not been participating as much in the Knit Along thread on Ravelry, just because, to be honest, the discussion there's a lot of discussion and it's a lot to keep up with. And so I'm also a little behind in the discussion. I did see an announcement and I just skimmed over the announcement, so I probably don't have any of the details right, but it seems like this campaign is going to kind of continue, that the designer has several other projects that she's designing that are going to go along with this campaign. And if I understand right, you can use your same character from this project for the other ones. And I think they're going to be 1 or 2 more main campaigns like this, and then some side quests. So that sounds like a lot of fun, and really kind of looking forward to seeing what happens there. Right now, this is going to be my focus though, so hopefully I will get a little further along on that one. Maybe I'll finish with Clue 2 by the next podcast episode, and be into Clue 3. We'll see what happens. So those are the 2 main projects that I'm knitting on that are not necessarily about what I'm dyeing or designing. Although the Heroes of Yarnia, I am using some of my yarn in that. My Camelot Merino Cashmere Nylon base, which is super soft. So I still have more things that I'm knitting, but I will talk about those in the next 2 segments. So lots of things going on for what I'm dyeing. The first main kind of time-sensitive thing is that as of right this moment, the sign-ups for the Tristan and Isolde Yarn Club are open. They will close at the end of the day on January 31st, 2017. So depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching it shortly after I release it, the Yarn Club is still open, and I definitely would love to see you join. This is a 9-month Yarn Club, so it is a little bit of a commitment, but I have some exciting things in store. I think I will go ahead and say this. I was going to keep it a little secret, but I'll go ahead and say it. I send out a little goodie, a little extra in each month's package, and I applied for a wholesale account with a kind of a major brand distributor. I will kind of keep things a little secret because there was one item that I thought would be perfect that they make I thought would be perfect for one of the months, and so I got approved for the wholesale account. That basically means that I get to order them at a lower price than just retail, which is good because that means that it becomes something that is affordable for the club. And this distributor is one of the major needle makers. And these are needles that I actually do have a set of these needles. They are kind of my backup set because I really love my Diet Craft needles, which I should mention that. Actually, that'll be in what I'm stashing next time, hopefully. So I really love my Diet Craft needles. So these other needles, I have this particular set that is my kind of backup set. And since that is the distributor, that I can now get things wholesale from. What I'm going to do is this time for this yarn club, the kind of big prizes for the FOs, I'm going to draw quarterly. So I'm going to do monthly prizes, kind of smaller prizes for people that are participating in the knit along. So not just in the yarn club, but you need to actually actively be using the yarn, participating in the knit along or crochet along. And quarterly, I'm going to draw for bigger prizes based on people that have finished items from that club's yarn, any yarn from the club. Anyway, so one of the quarterly items, I'm going to get an interchangeable needle set from this company, the exact same one that I actually own myself. And that is going to be one of the giveaways for participating in the knit along for the yarn club. So I'm super excited about being able to do that. Yeah, so looking forward to that happening. That will probably be the second quarter giveaway. So basically 6 months into the club. So look for that. So if you're not sure about joining the club, if the possibility of winning an interchangeable needle set excites you, there's another reason to potentially join the club. The other things that I'm doing, talking about clubs, now that the Poisoned Apple Yarn Club is over, 3 months after I have sent out a colorway for that club, the colorway becomes available to the public if it's a colorway I decide I want to add. So last month I added Shame and Slander, which is a really pretty kind of purpley pink color. So February 1st, the next color will be available. And so this is from the Poisoned Apple Club. This is actually the Poisoned Apple colorway. And I dyed it on, I'm going to be working on dyeing it across all the bases. The Yarn Club got it on Tristan, which is a sport weight base. And right now, so far, I have dyed it on Camelot, which is what I'm about to show you. And it's interesting, the reason I dye it on the different bases is to see what the colorway looks like, because it can make some differences. On Tristan, which is 100% superwash merino, it was a really intense colorway. I'll just say it's a red that I over dye with gray to kind of poison the apple. And you could really see kind of some real blotchiness and some of those darker spots on the Tristan. With the Camelot, because it's merino cashmere nylon, the cashmere and even the nylon, sometimes it doesn't fully mute colors, but it definitely takes the intensity down just a little bit. So I'm not quite seeing that super kind of blotchy look on the Camelot, but I still like the color quite a bit. So this would be a kind of a really deep red color. And like I said, on different bases it will look a little bit different. But this is how it looks on Camelot. And this will start being available outside the Yarn Club on February 1st. So even though I have it on Camelot now, it won't be listed in the shop until after February 1st. And then I will be dyeing it on the other bases so you guys can see how it looks on those bases. So working on that. I also am working on self-striping. This was my latest self-striping color. So this is an FO. I finished this sock. I think I was super close to finished last time. I don't think I had finished it last time. I think I was just really close. So I have finished this, so finished object. So this is the Exchange of Winnings colorway, and this was the colorway that was voted upon by people that are signed up for my newsletter, which I'm really excited that this was chosen because I think it turned out really nicely. So I'm super happy with it. I have another colorway that I developed for another designer who is putting out a book, and that book will be is actually in pre-order right now. And actually, since it's in pre-order, I guess I don't have to keep it super secret. So it is Cece Allman. She and her daughter actually have their own podcast, Geek Girls podcast, and they are actually doing the book together. So it's her first book was Coffee with Cece. So this one is the second Coffee with Cece and her daughter. So I have a special self-striping that I developed for that book. I won't show you the color yet because they have not released any spoiler pictures, so I don't want to spoil the color, but they gave me a picture of that that goes with the theme, and I developed the self-striping colorway based upon that picture, and it's one that I'm really excited about. So since that book is supposed to come out in March, then that means I should have that self-striping color available at DFW Fiberfest in April. So I guess I need to start knitting the sample for that one. And so that's something that I'll be doing. And then I have another self-striping colorway, a 6-stripe with 6 different colors that I think I'm going to try out this weekend and see how that turns out. And so I want to have at least that other new color for DFW Fiberfest. Basically right now my dyeing kind of concentration besides the Yarn Club is DFW Fiberfest, because April is going to be here before I know it. So I'm basically dyeing like crazy, especially with the self-striping, so that way I can have enough inventory to bring to the Fiberfest. And so I want to have a few new colorways that will be there. So the one that I did for Cece's book, and then hopefully the 6-stripe that I'm thinking about next, which if it turns out really well, then I will show you guys on the next episode of the podcast. That one. And I've also been potentially thinking about a special exclusive for DFW Fiberfest. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it is something that's at least in the back of my head. That probably needs to come to the front of my head really soon, but I'm possibly considering that. So those are kind of the things that I'm working on for dyeing. I also, in the what I'm knitting, I am doing a sample sock for one of my older self-striping colorways. This is Cadbury Castle, so it is purple, actually the Tintagel colorway, and it's golden brown, which is my Evane colorway. And this one I just never got around to doing a sample for earlier, and I decided it needs a sample. So that's in the kind of what I'm knitting. That's the current sock on the needle. And then as soon as that is done, the 6-stripe that I develop this weekend will go on the needle. And I think that's about it in the world of Roundtable Yarns. Definitely doing lots and lots of things. Again, if you want to join the Tristan and Isolde Yarn Club, if it is before January 31st, or actually, I guess before February 1st, because you have to the end of the day on January 31st, then I hope, if you haven't already signed up, that you go ahead and join us. For what I'm designing, I feel like I have been talking about the green shawl, which is put away in the closet, and I forgot to grab it for this podcast episode, but I think I showed you guys last time. And you've seen it over multiple podcast episodes. It is almost ready for release, finally. Late last night, early this morning, I got the layout back from my graphic designer. So basically, while I am uploading this podcast episode, I will be looking over that layout, and as long as everything looks good and I don't have any changes, then I will actually be releasing that pattern today. If I do need to send it back to the graphic designer for any changes, then it might be a couple more days to get those changes back. So we will see. Hopefully it will be a new release today, but if not, it is definitely very soon, because it is right there at the end of the process. So super exciting about that. The pattern name is La Belle Dame Sans Mercy. So the beautiful woman without mercy. And there's a whole behind the name section where you can find out the story of what exactly that means in the pattern. And if you are subscribed to my mailing list, whenever there is a new pattern release, I always give a discount code to my mailing list subscribers. I do not offer the discount to publicly. It is specifically a thank you for people who subscribe to the mailing list. So if the pattern looks good, probably it will be released before the podcast episode is released, or maybe kind of right at the same time. But if you have not yet joined the mailing list, you can go to kind of any of my websites. There is a sign up for the mailing list, and you can join and get the coupon code for future pattern releases. So obviously the other thing I'm still working on is the book project. The good news is that I have finished another one of the projects for the book. So that makes 5 completely finished. Actually, I say completely, it does still need to be blocked. 4 completely finished, and then the 5th one, finished knitting, just needs to be blocked. I did have a little bit of an issue with that one. Not quite ready to tell you the theme of the book, but in order to make this story make sense, I do have to give away what this particular project is. So this particular project that I'm talking about is a cowl, knit in the round. So I did the thing where I didn't specifically check my gauge for the particular design that I'm using for this cowl. What I did is I kind of guesstimated based on a cowl that I have knit out of the same yarn, basically using numbers that were very similar with the way that cowl fit. I knew the fit that I wanted for this particular cowl, and the fit for the other cowl was similar, and so I just kind of based my numbers off of that. So I'm knitting this cowl, and I'm looking at it on my needles, and I'm thinking, this just looks really huge. This is a cowl that I want to be closer to the neck, not like choking to the neck, but a little bit closer to the neck, not one that's really drapey. But I'm looking at it on my needles, and it just looks huge, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be too big. This is not going to be what I want. So I make the decision, instead of doing the thing where I actually like check gauge and do math and actually see how the numbers work, I decided to trust my eyes. Well, apparently, so I decided to trust my eyes. So I thought it was too big, and so I did a round of decreases. And I thought it was really big, and so I did a pretty drastic set of decreases. And I continued knitting, and according to my eyes, I was like, yeah, this is looking good. I think this is the right size. I'm happy with this. And then I bound off. So excited, yay, I finished another project. I go to put it on, and it's a crown. I could not get it past this part of my head. I'll just say it's something that flares out a little bit, so it kind of flared out. And I could not get the top part to go down over my head. So the decreases that I decided to do, they really should not have been done. I should have just stayed with my original number. So I tried ripping it back to the point where I had done those decreases. And this was early in the morning. This was my early morning knit before I do anything else during the day. And it was starting to get really close to the time where my son was going to be waking up. And I have to admit, I probably just wasn't as careful as I should have been. And I was having trouble getting the stitches back on the needle. And I was frustrated with myself that I hadn't taken the time to actually do the math, and I had just tried to eyeball it, and it hadn't worked out. And I dropped more stitches beyond the point where they needed to be, and I just got frustrated with the whole thing, and I just ripped it all out. And I started over from the very beginning. And this time, when I got to that point before, when I thought this was looking too big. I still looked at it on my needles and thought, this is too big. It just looks too big. But I made myself think, no, your decreases last time made it way too small. I mean, it wasn't like a little too small, it was way too small. So I'm not going to do those decreases. I'm just going to keep going. And the whole time I'm telling myself, this looks big, this looks big, this looks big. I finish it, bind off, I put it on. Guess what? Perfect. It's exactly the fit that I wanted. So kind of don't always trust your eyes when you are knitting something. Trust math. I mean, like I said, if I had actually bothered to check my gauge and do the math, I probably would have kind of made myself realize that what I was doing was what I wanted, and the decreases were completely unnecessary. So the good news is that it is done now. It is the exact size that I wanted it to be, so I'm very happy with that. So that is project number 5 of 9. So I am currently working on project 6, and that one is over the halfway point, and I would love to have it finished by the end of the weekend. We'll see. So hopefully I will have that one finished soon, which once I finish that means it'll be 2/3 of the way done, project 6 of 9. The next project that I plan to work on is something that should be pretty quick. I say should be, based upon my plan. It should be pretty easy. Hopefully nothing happens on the needles to make it harder. The last 2 projects are ones that are a little more involved, both in the design part of it as well as in the knitting. So I'm not sure how long those will take, especially the 9th one. But I'm hoping to have all of the projects finished, the knitting finished by DFW. I mean, that gives me until April. Maybe I can do it. And then plan the photography for kind of in the spring, possibly early summer. And then my goal would be to have the book ready for Houston Fiber Fest at the end of June. We'll see what happens. But that's what I would like to happen. So I think now there might not be very much progress done on the Heroes of Yarnia or the Elizabeth shawl, because I really want to focus on the book projects. So we'll kind of see what happens. And next month I will actually give you guys the information about the theme and the projects that will be in the book. So finally, at some point, I will tell you what the book is about. Yeah, so that is kind of my focus on designing at the moment. So hopefully a new pattern released today. If not today, then definitely in the next couple of days. And then all my focus will be on the book. So I do have a few things that I have added to my stash. And the first thing is the next installment of the Elemental Fiber Works Fiber Club that I'm part of, the one that is based upon those postcards posters, and then we get postcards from NASA. And this is one that it's technically a year long, but every quarter you only sign up for a quarter at a time, and then you can decide either to continue with the next quarter, or if you decide you wanted to stop, then you could. So we're in the 3rd quarter, and I believe this is the first shipment of the 3rd quarter. And the 1st quarter shipments, the colors were kind of in the orangey and yellow kind of palette, which is not what I normally turn to. And then the 2nd quarters were more in my types of colors. If you can't tell, the pinks and purples and blues, those types of things. And this one that we got this month is still in my wheelhouse, the colors that I love. So super excited that I signed up for this next quarter, because I definitely am glad I did not miss this one. So here is the postcard. You can already probably tell that the colors are going to be awesome if you are like me and you love these colors. And here is the fiber. So you can see those lovely blues and then that little bit of gray coming through as well. So again, this is Elemental Fiberworks. This particular fiber is a silk merino and superwash merino blend. So I think that is lots of fun, and I will enjoy spinning that. Once I get back to spinning, you'll notice I don't have a what I'm spinning section in this podcast. I have been successfly doing the morning, doing some crafting before I check my email and all those things, but that has been knitting lately, rather than spinning. So do need to get back to the spinning, but getting more fiber like that definitely is something that encourages me to do some more spinning. So so hopefully I will be able to put that on the wheel, or that, or one of the other braids that I got from that fiber club. And then my other stash, I did add some yarn. One of my Christmas presents I got was a gift certificate to Paradise Fibers online. And what I really wanted to get using that gift certificate was actually a set of hand cards, because I have some fiber that I would like to card, but the hand cards that are for the type of fiber I like were sold out. They only had the fine ones, which is used for cotton or like really fine merino, and the stuff that I want to card I know are not suitable for that type of card. So they were sold out of the hand cards that I wanted, and I've been checking back and checking back and checking back, and they're still sold out. And then so I thought I would wait, because the gift card didn't expire for like a year, so I thought I had time. And then they sent out an email saying that all their yarn and fiber was on sale for that weekend. I think this was last weekend, for 25% off. It's hard to turn that down, and since I had just signed up for an account, because I don't think I had ordered anything from Paradise Fibers before, since I signed up for an account, you build points with your purchases, and signing up for an account, you get 200 points automatically, and you can cash in every 100 points is equal to $1. So those 200 points basically gave me $2. So I had my gift card plus the extra $2 from those points, and then 25% off. Sorry, hand cards, you're still out of stock. I decided to go ahead and use my gift card and get some yarn. So what I did is I actually picked some yarn that I normally probably would not buy for myself, and decided to treat myself with the gift card and the sale. So with the sale, I was able to I got 2 skeins of yarn. I was able to get both of these with using my gift card and my little $2, and I only had to pay, it ended up being like $2.67 more than what I had. So I paid $2.67 for these 2 skeins of yarn. Thank you very much to the person who gave me the gift card. So the first one that I got is from Reywa. It's Reywa Fibers, which is the Harmony yarn. This is Tibetan yak down and wool, so a 50-50 blend. I'm gonna cover up that part. Okay, so here is the tag, so you can see that. And then I got this really pretty deep pink color that I thought was really, really fantastic. So yak down, 50% yak down plus wool. I wish you guys could feel this. This is incredibly soft. And I really liked buying from this company because it said that our profits are dedicated to providing educational sponsorship to children of impoverished Tibetan families, creating opportunity and hope for the future. So it's kind of nice that that the purchase does more with this yarn purchase. So I have no idea what this is going to become yet because it is so soft. My go-to is usually a cowl because I like having soft things go around my neck. So we'll see what happens. This is a sport weight. It has 328 yards, so pretty typical for sport weight. So it's probably not enough to do any type of shawl. It would be something really small. So probably the cowl idea will work well with that. Put that over there. And then the other one I got is I decided to, I'll go ahead and show you the color. So this pretty purple color, see my colors, pinks, purples, blues, that's what I always buy. So pretty purple. This is from Anzula Luxury Fibers, and I have seen Anzula around all over the place, but I have never purchased any Anzula before, so I finally decided this is a good opportunity to do that, to give it a try. And this is actually fiber content that I have never knit with before. It is 65% silk and 35% linen. So a silk and linen blend. And feeling this, especially compared to the other, this is not soft. It would almost, not, I want to say crunchy, but it's not, like, you don't hear it, but it's definitely, it definitely has structure to it, I guess. In some ways you could say that. So soft it is not, although my understanding with linen is that the more you wash it, usually the softer it becomes. So I'm not really sure how this will be on the needles. I'm not really sure what exactly I might make with it. Since I do have the one skein, this is 365 yards. So, I guess it's maybe a heavy fingering weight at 365 yards. So I'm not really sure what I might do with it yet, but definitely something that will kind of take into consideration the linen content and see what happens with that. But I thought I would give it a try since it's something kind of completely different that I have not tried before. And I think some ways it's kind of fun to use gift cards to do things like that, to kind of give yourself, I guess, permission to try something a little bit new. So that gets added to my stash as well. And that is what I have been stashing lately. For what I've been reading / watching, I'm still having a hard time kind of concentrating on things. So I don't really have any books in particular that I've finished reading, especially on the Kindle or potentially in print. But I did have a book that was that I've been looking forward to that was just released yesterday. So hopefully, since it is a book that I'm really excited about, that will be something that kind of makes me want to read it and kind of gets me back into that reading kind of frame of mind. That is the last book in the series I've mentioned before, The Immortal Descendants by April White. So it's the fifth book in the series. I read the previous 4 books kind of toward the end of last year, and I mentioned them on the podcast. So the main character is basically a clocker, someone who can travel through time. And the end of the 4th book really just left things in shambles. Time had split. There were different kind of alternative paths toward time, lots of changes. Several of the characters were also kind of split apart from one another. And it left things in complete disarray. And so hopefully in this 5th book, obviously they're going to be trying to fix the split in time and other types of things. I hope that it is a happy ending, or at least happy-ish ending. I'm really hoping, because I really, really like these characters and I want to see good things happen for them. But it just was released like yesterday, so I started it, maybe it was Tuesday, but basically yesterday or the day before. So I've read the first couple of chapters and looking forward to continuing to read it. One of the things that was really nice is that it was available for pre-order. And so when I saw that it was available, because I knew it was something I really wanted to read, I didn't want to accidentally forget that it came out or miss the release date. And so I went ahead and pre-ordered it. So I didn't have to, keep track of the release date. When it was released, it just automatically was added to my Kindle. That's kind of one of the things I really, really like about the e-readers, that you can do that and get those new releases quickly. And now I don't remember who said it, but earlier this week I saw somebody on Facebook that was quoting, I think it was someone pretty well known, saying that pre-ordering a book is like giving a gift to your future self. I think that's really appropriate, because, you know, your future self, suddenly this book that you've been wanting to read shows up. There it is. Surprise. So I guess I got to open the gift that my past self had given me. Nice way of thinking about it. So I am looking forward to working on that, or reading that book. As far as what else, I have been listening to audiobooks. The one that I'm listening to now, the fiction one, I completely forgot to look up the name. I think it's called The Shadow Queen. I believe C.J. Redwine is the author. I will double check that and add that to the show notes. It is a story that is based upon Snow White. There are no like dwarves and stuff like that, so it's the very, very basic structure of Snow White. And I am enjoying it. If I weren't enjoying it, I wouldn't continue listening to it. But there are parts of it that kind of bother me a little bit. I don't know when the book was released. I think it is a newer book. But the evil queen that is in this book really strongly reminds me of the evil queen from Once Upon a Time. And I know some of this is because it's kind of an archetypal character, and so some of those similarities will be there. But to the point where, and since I'm listening to this on audiobook, you know, I am getting the narrator's kind of interpretation when she does voices for characters. And I really feel that when the dialogue for the evil queen character comes in, I can hear the evil queen on Once Upon a Time. Not Regina, but the evil queen. You know, I mean, you can tell the actress kind of does a slight difference when she's voicing the different characters. So this narrator who's reading this book, I almost feel like she is consciously imitating the evil queen from Once Upon a Time, and maybe that's not true, but it really feels like that. So in my head, when I'm hearing this, that's who I'm picturing. I'm picturing the evil queen from Once Upon a Time, and it kind of mixes up, you know, stories and things. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it definitely is something that kind of goes through my head whenever I'm listening to the book. And I guess since it is going through my head, you know, consciously, it does kind of take me away from the moment of the book itself and the moment of the story. But I am close to the end of that one. And then I did finish another audiobook before that, a nonfiction one. And this is a book that has become kind of one of those book of the moments as far as, in some sense, the political scene. That it is called Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. And I think after reading the book that people are trying to, and I'm going to try to draw a line and not make the podcast become a political, you know, podcast. But I mean, it's something that I'm reading and thinking about, so I do want to talk about it. I think that people are using the book for more than it is intended to be used. I think that the timing of the book release just happened to coincide at the moment that we are now in history. And even though it was not the author's intention to explain kind of what people are thinking about in particular in voting, that the book is kind of being used that way. And in reading it, I really don't get it as an explanation of the political moment. I get it as something even actually deeper than that, and possibly more important than that. And so I think actually kind of trying to use the book as an explainer of this moment in history almost kind of takes away from the value of what the book really is. So I actually just yesterday listened to an interview that J.D. Vance did with Ezra Klein. Ezra Klein is the guy who runs Vox, and he has his own podcast called The Ezra Klein Show, which I listen to very frequently. He brings on some really interesting guests, and I really enjoy listening to it. So this week's episode, he interviewed J.D. Vance, and the first question he asked was basically, why did you write the book? You know, what was your intention? And basically, Vance was explaining kind of how hard it is for somebody who grew up in the environment he grew up in, to be able to have upward mobility, basically. He is someone who was and is successful, but in reading the book, I really felt like there were some really key turning points in his life, and that if this one thing didn't happen or didn't work out, then he probably would kind of be stuck back in the place where he grew up and have not advanced. And so he definitely had some opportunities that not everyone around him was also able to experience. And that seems to be kind of the core that I got from the book. And then after hearing the interview, that seemed to be what he was trying to explain. So not so much what is going on politically, but what is truly going on in some of these communities, and what it means for the kids that are growing up in those communities. And for that reason, I really enjoyed the book. Is kind of hard because, you know, you don't necessarily want to say that you enjoy hearing about some of the negatives that are happening in some areas of the United States. But I thought it was really well written. He was very honest with what he shared about his own experiences, and I really, really recommend reading the book. But if you're trying to read it for an explanation of what is going on right now in politics, that's really not the intention or what the book does. Anyway, but I also do recommend the interview with Ezra Klein. It was definitely very helpful in kind of understanding the author's thought process in writing his memoirs. So I think those are the main things that I am reading and I guess listening to, so not so much watching right now. And I think that I will be looking forward to reading that fifth book. It's called Chasing Death by April White. That book in the series, finding out what happens to the characters who, and hopefully they get everything straightened out. And see what happens after that. And I think that should do it for this episode. If you are a first-time viewer, thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you will come back. If you have been a returning viewer, thank you very much for returning. I really appreciate that you join me every other week in this little chat about what has been going on mostly in the world of fiber arts in my life. If you want to actually chat, because I really do like it when it's not just me saying all these things to the camera, but I like to have a conversation, there is a thread in the Ravelry group for t-shirts and shawls for each episode. So feel free to come there and talk about the episode. If there's something you just want to in general chat about, there is a general chat thread if it doesn't apply to a specific episode. And then there is also the knit along. So again, this quarter's knit along theme, any shawl that the pattern has been in your queue or favorites for more than a year, or has been at least released over a year ago, so that should be pretty wide open for what you can choose. And I hope you will come over to the Ravelry group and join us in the conversation and or the knit along. And I guess that ends this episode. I will see you guys in another 2 weeks, and happy knitting!